Hello, listeners. Welcome to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life by Veena World. We are your hosts, Neil and Sunila. Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life is a podcast where we talk about great places and the stories behind them. And just going by the theme, and after a brief hiatus during Diwali, we are back on Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. Thank you so much for joining in. Without wasting any time, we are going to get into today's topic. Sunila, welcome.
Mhm.
And it's good to do a podcast with you after a long time
Yes,
because
Neil.
we did a fair few podcasts with our guests and then we did one on Vienna with you. Today we are back in incredible India. We are going to talk about a place that we did an episode on Hampi during the initial few days of Travel Explore Celebrate Life. That was in 2021, at the start of 2021, and now we are nearing 2023, and you had the beautiful opportunity to visit Hampi with Sarah, then your mother, and my parents, of course.
Yes.
Tell us, like, why visit Hampi? Like, what made you decide that okay, this holiday is going to be in Hampi?
Yes. Hi, Neil, and hi, everyone. And yeah, it was such a pleasure to go back to Hampi, Neil. I really love the place. So, to answer you why go back, there are so many reasons to go back. And I feel like I still haven't seen Hampi in its totality. I need to go back and see it again. But one, Veena and Sudhir, your parents had never been to Hampi. And I think being in travel, if we've not been to Hampi, that needs to be corrected, if not anything. And we were really looking for a nice holiday. We were also celebrating my birthday. So I thought I wanted to be in a special place. And that's why we chose Hampi. My mother had been wanting to go to Hampi for a very long time. And in fact, there was a Marathi movie by the name of Hampi. And she saw that and she said, there is something so beautiful in India and we haven't yet seen it. Like, why would we not? And Sarah is an architecture student. So she's in the second year of architecture. And I thought, what better place? As a mother, you always try to mix holidays with work, but for the children, of course. But she thoroughly enjoyed it too. I'm really glad she enjoyed it because there was something for everyone. And I think that is the best part of Hampi. We were all in different age groups, but everybody enjoyed it. And there was something for everybody to do. So that is why Hampi. And yeah, I was looking for a slightly luxurious holiday as well. And so we chose Evolve Back Kamalapura Palace Hampi. And that was just simply stunning. I mean, it's like having a palace of your own, and we were in our own pool villa. So what else could one ask for?
Yeah, I guess when you have a pool villa, your holiday can be guaranteed to be great because
Yeah.
just having that pool in your villa is just bucket list items. So with so many monuments, and we spoke, I think Hampi was
Mhm.
part of the Vijayanagara Empire. Is that
That's right.
correct? Yeah,
That's
right.
right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, and it was one of the richest empires in
Yes.
history and all of these things. So after doing this trip, one simple question, and that question is on everyone's minds first, is how many days do you need for Hampi? Because you can't fly into Hampi, right? How do you
Mhm.
get?
So, Neil, a lot of people would combine it with different, sightseeing places around. So, Hampi is in Karnataka. And the best way to get there, if you want to really cut short the time taken for traveling, is to fly into Hubli and then drive down. It's about a 3 hour drive from there. We actually flew into Bangalore simply because there are more flight connections. And, currently with the whole situation where flights could get cancelled, we just wanted to avoid that. And we said,
Yeah.
at least for Bangalore, you're 100% guaranteed that you're going in. The return, we kept it from Hubli because we didn't want to make the whole long journey again. And with Bangalore, in fact, there's a tip that I would like to tell our viewers here, that if you are using Bangalore, avoid getting into the city. Like, if you come into Bangalore airport and just move out, you are not stuck in traffic. But if you enter the city, if you think that, okay, let me combine it with a visit to something else in Bangalore, then be prepared that it's going to add 2 more hours to your journey for sure. Because the entire journey from Bangalore was about 6 to 7 hours, but the roads were amazing and we really didn't feel it. Like, it did not feel like this long journey that we were going through. The roads were amazing, and the closer you get to Hampi, the landscape also is pretty amazing, and there were like just flowers all around. So it was quite stunning. It was quite beautiful, very easy journey. But of course, while coming back, we didn't want to make the whole thing, so we just took a quick 3 hour drive to Hubli, and we flew out. And the advantage there was smaller airport, less crowd. You come out quickly, but then, there can be other issues as well with smaller airports, but that was all fine. So I would say at least 3 nights is something you can look at if you're looking at only Hampi. Of course, if you're making it a part of a longer itinerary, then 7, 8, 10 days as well. There's close by, there's Badami, there's so much to do. There's Hassan, Belgola. There is like so many other places that you can add into that itinerary when you start off from Bangalore, because you're going towards the north. In fact, some people even come into Goa and come down. So you could even do that. Like from Goa, you go through Yana Rocks and then come down. So someone who's a little more adventurous would probably take the route from Goa. You can go in from Bangalore, you can go in from Hubli. So yeah, if you're combining it with other places around, then keep at least a week. But if you're doing only Hampi, then 2 to 3 nights, at least 2 nights, if not three, I would say.
Great. So here I want to ask you, in the episode that we did on Hampi a year and a half ago, we had spoken about there being a lot of these cafes on the other side of the city. Do they still exist?
No, so what was known as the, hippie island and all of that, everything's been cleaned up. In fact, I was quite happy this time when I went, because what had happened, the side effects of tourism are also that sometimes we do not take care of our monuments, and preservation kind of takes a backseat, and it's just rampant tourism everywhere. Which also affected not just in the hippie island as it was known, and the cafes and everything. So there are still some really nice cafes are there, but at least the unwanted activities have all stopped. Also, what I had noticed last time was the main bazaar, like by the Virupaksha temple, and we'll talk of the temple later. But you have this main street, which was from ancient times as the main bazaar, and people had then actually started occupying it, unauthorized occupation of the actual sites, like the something that needs to be preserved. They had painted it, they started living there, they turned it into guest houses, and they said, come stay in the ruins. And it was just being exploited, and everything has gone. It's all been cleaned up, and in fact the archaeological society is realigning it, so they're kind of restoring the glory. So I was very happy to see that. So much cleaner than what it was before. So
Okay.
definitely one more reason to go back, even if you've been to Hampi before.
Okay. And of course, we talk about travel tips a lot. And of course, on our sister podcast, 5-minute travel tips. But here I want to ask you a tip. Everyone says that Hampi is a lot of walking.
Yes.
Is it really a lot of walking?
Oh, yes, it is a lot of walking. See, it depends on why do you want to go. Now, which kind of, I think the question here, Neil, I will link it to why go to Hampi. And a lot of people say, we discussed this and we've spoken about this in our earlier episode as well, that it was the capital of the Vijayanagara Empire. And the Vijayanagara Empire was not just Karnataka, it spread across, the states were formed later, right?
Yeah.
The Vijayanagara Empire was something that extended all through South India and Maharashtra and other places. Now, this was so rich and so amazing that they say that, in the medieval era, it was the second largest city after Beijing, the second richest and wealthiest city, very prosperous, very wealthy. And the whole clan of the Vijayanagara, empire, and mainly Krishna Dev Raya and the other, they built such a beautiful city. It's not built in a day, of course. This has been built over the years, and it is so vast and so spread out that you can't do all of it in one day. You cannot do everything, and you have to walk, because that is the best way to see it. And a lot of people call it the ruins, and of course they are the ruins, but I don't like to call them the ruins, because ruins mean that everything's dilapidated and you can't see everything. It's basically they're not living there anymore, but one visit there and you can really imagine what and how rich our country was, how rich the whole empire was, like what we were. It's and they were technologically advanced. So if you want to see like the secret chamber where they had their meetings, if you want to see how the aqueducts were run in those times, and water was brought to a place where the river was not nearby, and the entire city was still flourishing because they managed to bring the water from the river until here. How did they celebrate Dasara? How did they celebrate the festivals? You have to go everywhere and walk. And walking is the best way. Also because Hampi is so stunningly beautiful, like the topography, like if you see the whole area and just do a Google search, look for Hampi boulders, and you'll see these magnificent, huge boulders. They look like someone's kept them one on top of the other, and you wonder, how does this not fall? Like, what is happening? And of course, that's the effect of erosion, wind, and all of that, and volcanic activity, like years, millions and millions of years ago. And it's given Hampi this very unique landscape. So you have to climb. And that's why I say again that, many people wait till they're pretty like later in life to visit Hampi, like we'll do it later. I would start early, because if you're fitter, if you're active, you're healthier, then you can enjoy it much more. Because even to see a monument, like the Ganesha, the Sasavikalu Ganesha and the other Ganeshas are on top of the hill. Now, if you want to climb up that Hemakutta hill, or you want to even enjoy a sunrise or sunset, a little bit of hiking is involved. Good shoes are a must. And in fact, if you have trekking shoes, take them, because just walking in Hampi is like trekking. So it's a great exercise as well. So
Well,
definitely you need
when you
good
say good
shoes.
shoes, like would you also agree that don't buy shoes right before your trip?
100%. We've spoken of this before, and I will go on saying it again and again. Please make sure you've broken into your shoes, because the worst thing you want is a shoe bite, and then you go around looking for band-aids and other stuff to be
What was
comfortable.
it? You
But
was like descending from Kilimanjaro in Africa, and your shoes
yes.
started giving way, right?
That is another tip actually, Neil, that make sure the shoes are a little loose. Like you should not buy trekking shoes that are exactly your size or a little tight. What happened in Kilimanjaro was that, in my excitement when I was in the US, I said, let me buy the best shoes, blah, blah, blah. They can be the best shoes in the world, but if they are not your size, or they were a little slightly just enough space for my feet, which is fine when you're walking on the road, but which is not fine when you're going up on the mountains. Your feet swell. And while coming back, I thought I'm going to lose my toenails for sure. But our guide was really kind. He looked at my feet, and they had panic all over their faces. He took my shoes, he put it on his shoulder, and he gave me one of their shoes, in fact, which were really big, but it let my feet breathe and I could come down. So definitely when you're trekking, get shoes that are slightly bigger. Imagine, and the best thing to do is actually go buy shoes in the evening, because by evening your feet are swollen. So, you can then buy the right size shoes. So yes, when you're trekking, make sure you have those.
Okay, so Hampi, right? You
Mhm.
mentioned that you can see so much. You can see why, like a place like India can be called
Mhm.
incredible, because one of the places you go to is Hampi. Now, I have a friend, his name's Rahul. He's getting married at the end of this year. And I was on a call with him, and he was like, Neil, I'm doing a road trip down south. Of course, he's going Mumbai,
Mhm.
Goa, and from Goa, he's doing all of the west coast until Kovalam, cutting across the
Wow.
mountains and making his way back through Coimbatore and towards Bangalore, and then Hampi. Now, of course, when you're doing such a long road trip, it is but natural that you're going to need many days, and
Yes.
you will start looking at ways in which you can, instead of spending 3 nights in one place in an ideal world, you'll spend
Mm.
one night in all of that. So
Mm.
we were going back and forth on a lot of destinations. And I just remembered, and I thought it's an apt question to ask, is that, of course, you mentioned 3 nights is a good enough stay. But if someone is clubbing it with many destinations, and of course today we want shorter breaks and do many
Mm.
more vacations
Yeah.
in a year, if I were to have just say one day in Hampi, if I were to have just a few hours in Hampi,
Mm.
and let's say I'm doing a road trip, what are the must see places, or what are, let's say, monuments that you would say, okay, Neil, don't miss out on these ones?
Okay, so if you had just one day, and in fact, Neil, long back when I had visited Hampi, I was on a work trip and something similar. I was checking all of the other places in Karnataka and all of the other, that we could add and bring to our tours and our holidays and offer to people. So I was checking as to what can be done, and we really had one day in Hampi, which I just remembered. I said, how come I did not see all of this the last time I was here? And then I realized that we had only one day. So if you have just one day in Hampi, I would say there are two, three things that you must do, and especially for someone who's, he's getting married, so he's obviously much younger. Um, For anyone and everyone, there are two temples that you must see in Hampi, and which is the Virupaksha and the Vithala temple. So the Virupaksha temple was built for Shiva, and this is a temple that comes from the 7th century BCE. And then, of course, there were some additions later on. It has this beautiful tall gopuram which stands out from everywhere. Like you can see it from everywhere that you are. And in fact, when you take a guide, and do take a guide when you're in Hampi, one, they give you the information, and the stones just come to life. Like I remember our guide telling us that the temples were nothing but a form of education, and it just made so much sense when he said that, because what is carved on the temple is nothing but stories, and the stories to be told to the next generation and next generation. So he said, when they didn't have other means like Zoom, for example, what was the best way to pass on information was the temples. And that's why he said, take a close look at all the temples in India, and you will see that it was nothing but education, like leaving stories for the next generation. And small things like this. And actually, he was amazing at taking photos as well. So we have some really good photos of the five of us. Otherwise, you're always looking for who will be the person taking the photos. So that also kind of helped, and it was good to have the guide. So he took us on the Hemakuta hill, and then as we were walking, we could start seeing the Virupaksha temple. And you can start seeing the Gopuram out there. There is a temple, elephant Lakshmi, who kind of blesses you every time you go. So it's quite sweet. And the temple actually has a pinhole camera. So if you once you go inside, I found it fascinating that when you're seeing the old, but they were really advanced. And the whole idea was for him to be able to see the Gopuram even from the other side of the temple. And then they take you in, and there is a part where the light comes in and you see the inverted Gopuram there. So they actually had the technology of the pinhole camera right then.
Oh,
So that
wow.
is something you just can't miss. You have to see the Virupaksha temple because it is also quite stunning. And the whole story, like I have to quickly tell you a story here. They say that Hampi was named after the goddess Parvati, and she took the form of Pampa Devi. So after Sati and everything, she wanted to, like Shiva refused to recognize her or something, and she wanted to again woo him. And so this is where it all happened. And then Shiva finally gave in, and she did everything that he wanted. She also did yoga, tapasya, all of that. And then they got married, and which was supposed to be at the Virupaksha temple, or the site of the temple. So that is why this is the Shiva temple. And he came to be known as Pampapati, and from Pampa came the name of Hampi, is what they say.
Ah,
So that is how it was named Hampi, because this was her land. And then the other thing that you must see, of course, is something that if you take your 50 rupee note out, the Indian 50 rupees, you will see it there, which is the Vithala temple and the stone chariot in the Vithala temple. The Vithala temple, for me, I think, is one of the most amazing architectural wonders in India. Like, really, I think I would put it as one of the top most things that you must go and see it, because it's the whole complex. Like, you walk in, and even the gate is quite nice. There's this whole complex. You have the stone chariot right in the center. This was made for Garuda, which is the vehicle for Vithala. So you can't really see the Garuda today, but it was meant. So they say that it wasn't really meant as a functioning chariot, but just more like a decorative item. So you can see everyone trying to take photos with the note, positioning themselves in those selfies. What is really amazing out there is the big hall around, and you have this whole, the mandapa out there, and that is where you see the musical columns. So this entire complex, they say, was probably made for dance, for music, because you can actually see how they had in the architecture. When the guide shows, he showed the holes where the curtains would be hung. So everything was thought of. And you can actually hear the seven notes of the music in the musical columns. Of course, because people have kind of misused it, you can't go in there. It's
yeah.
protected now. But if you tap the columns, you can hear the music. That's not all. They actually have some columns which have some different musical instruments. So you have the tabla, you have the mridangam, you have other things. And if you tap that column, you hear the music of the notes of that instrument. I mean, how amazing is that? And then there is one more mandapa where you have other architecture which shows the Ramayana and which shows other things. So it's just stunning. So these two monuments are something you cannot miss. And actually, there is a very beautiful riverside walk which connects the two monuments. So they also have these electric buggies, like the golf buggies that take you right till the temple and back. But I would say walk. And if you walk, they built a very nice, like a promenade kind of a thing. It's a nice riverside walk from the Virupaksha temple to the Vithala temple. And all along the way, you have the river by your side. You have the Tungabhadra river, and you have these huge boulders on the other side. There are so many beautiful spots for photography, just to enjoy nature, to sit. Neil, you can see I can go on talking about Hampi,
No, I was
but
just going to say that, why don't you be the guide to people when they are in Hampi? Because you know enough now. And after
yeah,
two
no,
trips over
really.
there,
And this is
yeah.
just like 5% of what is there to see in Hampi, Neil. But yes, if you have one day, these two temples and the riverside walk is a must. The
Hmm.
other thing you can do is either for sunrise or sunset, depending on
I
if
was
you're
just
a
going to come to that, like, because,
early riser or
everyone,
not.
yeah.
Climb up the Matanga hill
Hmm.
and enjoy the view from there. So that is
Did
something
you
you
did you do that
can't
for
miss.
sunrise,
We couldn't do it this time
or
because
just
we
didn't
were
wake up?
really tired and there was
Hmm.
just too many things to do. But I said, when I go back with my friends, I'm going to do it. But we did go up the Hemakuta hill, which is also like a little gentler. So it also gives you this beautiful view of all the temples, and you can see how much the whole area, was all under Hampi. So in fact, those who have longer time, typically the days are divided into two: the Royal Center and the Sacred Center. So the Sacred Center has all your major temples and other monuments, and the Royal Center would have like the Queen's Baths and the Lotus Mahal, the whole the area of the king and where they lived, and a lot of things there. There's just so much to go on talking. The elephant stables. So it's just made it easier like that. So then there's an underground Shiva temple. So you really have to go underground to see it. There's just so many things. Narasimha temple, I can go on and on about things out there in Hampi. So yeah, but definitely one day catch the sunrise or the sunset, these two temples and the way walk through, and you will see the bazaars everywhere. So the way it was built was every temple had its main bazaar, and you can see it still. And like I said, it's all clean now. So it's a pleasure to go there.
But that thing you mentioned, the 50 rupee banknote, and
Mhm.
the Indian 50 rupee note, and I think it is the Vithala temple that you see on it. We had covered that in our banknotes of
Yes,
India episode also, or
that's right.
banknotes from around the world which
Yeah.
have monuments on them, and that was pretty cool. That was again very very early on. And listeners, if you want to go listen to that episode, of course you can just go scroll up or scroll down and then find the episode, or just search for banknotes of the world, and it will pop up soon. But Sunila, any trip where you're walking so much, you're waking up for sunrise, you're going for sunset, you're doing all these hikes, you have to keep yourself energized, and something that can make or break a trip is food. So how was the
Mhm.
food?
So the food was, I mean, I would say that it's not a food lover's paradise. Let's put
Mhm.
it that way. But the food was pretty
it's
good.
it's good to think about it that way, because it's ground reality, right? And
Yeah.
it's
So
always
it's
good to
not
go.
something.
Yeah.
Also, Neil, we went back after the pandemic. So, things have not really opened up. So if you probably go back there after 6 months or so, I'm sure a lot more things have opened. Like they say that in Kamlapura, there's actually an area where you have like a chopati street and you get other stuff. But one of the places that I went to, even when I went about 10 years back, and which I went back to now, is the Mango Tree Cafe. They've had to change their location because in the whole process of cleaning up Hampi,
Hmm.
this was riverside at that time, and I used to really love the location. Now it's a little inside. It's by the Virupaksha temple, so it makes it kind of convenient to fit it in your way. Food was quite good. What was good was there's a lot of choice in that sense, but of course it's not like true continental, or you have a lot of continental, lot of Israeli dishes that you can look for, because all people from all around the world came to Hampi. In fact, there used to be more foreigners in Hampi than Indians in Hampi. So you did have a choice of all kinds of meals from everywhere. But actually, we really liked the Indian food there. Like they had a South Indian thali, which was really delicious. And if you like more Indian food, then it can really so be a great place to go. In fact, some of the we had like kind of a all day breakfast, and that kind of worked really well. So the egg dishes, scrambled eggs and other stuff, they were made very well. Mushroom, in fact, we had some dish with mushroom that really turned out well. So I think the ones with the Indian taste, with a little bit of masala and everything in it, was quite delicious. The others, I would say, were average. But yes, if you want to change, like if you order a pizza, you can't really go wrong. I mean, it's fine. So we went to another cafe, and where we had some pizza and salad. So the salad, I would say, was something you can skip, but definitely stick to pizzas and other stuff, and you're good. So it
Very,
was okay. Like,
very
it wasn't
valid
bad.
point that, we are just like, of course, pandemics are done right now. And of course, it seems like the pandemic is done and people are just traveling everywhere. But infrastructure has still not come back to 100%. And
Yeah.
because infrastructure has not come back to 100%, one, of course, we don't have enough flights to different places. But a very valid point you just made was that try to stick to the favorites. And
Yes.
if you stick to the
Yes.
staple favorites,
You can't go wrong.
you can't go wrong. But if you order exotic stuff,
Hmm.
there is a chance that you may go wrong. Very valid point.
And I found this, like, honestly, I found this not just in the smaller cafes, but even in a luxurious hotel where we were staying. When we ordered something that was a little more exotic because it was on the menu, and
Yeah,
then we realized that probably the chefs have not yet come back. Like, there has been a lot of churning of manpower in the hospitality and travel industry all across the world, and not
yeah,
just India. I saw this in the US. We just had someone come back from Canada. They said the same thing. So in fact, India is in a much better state, I would say, in terms of getting back to normalcy. But we realized that. But the next day, when we ordered, like, we went to their their Mughlai food. Oh my God, the food was just out of the world. It was amazing.
Hmm.
So when you stick to something that people know, you can't go wrong. But avoid, at least for now, avoid these amazing exotic. Like, come on, even in Mumbai, we've had a bad meal where we ordered something exotic, like.
Yeah.
So you can do it
Happens.
anywhere. So
Happens.
yeah.
Awesome.
So
Sunila,
yeah.
Hampi, yes, we've spoken about it. We wanted to do another episode in 2022 and we've ticked that off. Have you missed out anything?
No, I think Hampi, Neil, Hampi, everywhere you go, every day I would listen to a new story about Hampi. So, for example, we were doing this river walk from the Virupaksha to the Vittala temple, and suddenly there were like armies of monkeys, like just out of the blue, they're coming in. And the guide said, "Now, do you know why it's called Kishkinda?" And I said, "Kishkinda." And he said, "Do you remember Ramayana and where Sugriva and Bali fought?" And it said that when Rama came to this place, he helped them. And then that is how the whole fight happened. And that's where he got his army of monkeys. And I said, it feels like real because they were just non-stop, and it was really a nice sight with the little children and the little monkeys going around. So mythology in Hampi is at every step and everywhere you go. You feel that I don't want to see so many temples and monuments, not just temples. Maybe I don't want to cover all the monuments, is what you start feeling. But once you go there, you want to see more, because
Yeah.
if you have a guide, like, let me just give you an example. There was something I had missed the last time I went, and this was one of the monuments called the Hazare Rama Temple. The Hazare Rama Temple, one theory is that because there are so many, it has like sculptures of Rama in it. But the other one says Hazara just means entrance, and this was the entrance, and this was part of the royal center. And the Hazare Rama Temple, Neil, is an amazing place. Like, I could literally spend at least half a day there, because it has the entire Ramayana carved on the temple. I haven't seen that anywhere else in India. Do you remember when we went to Bali and we did rafting, and we saw the whole Ramayana carved
Yeah.
on these stones, and just simply when you're rafting, and I said, wow, Bali has it. Why doesn't India have this? But India does have it. We don't know about it. So the way it is on the Hazar Rama temple is, you have one level where it gives the story, then you have the second level where the story continues, and the third level on the top where the story continues again. So the whole
Mm.
idea is that you go around the temple, do one pradakshina, come back, know the story, and you can see the story live. So that's when he said, like, do you now agree that this was education for the masses? And so there is so much to see. And yes, you can do bouldering, you can do trekking. Like, you see a lot of people getting active and climbing boulders. There are places where you can do that. So you have to choose what you want to do. If you don't want to spend much, you can stay in Hospet. You can also stay in Hampi in a simpler hotel. Or if you want to go the whole thing, then you can stay in this beautiful luxurious palace hotel as well. So Hampi can satisfy everyone in many different ways. You have to decide what you want to do. And like you said, maybe it's not going to be just one trip. So plan for your next
Yeah,
trip
like look at you.
already.
You've
There
done 2 trips
so much
already,
to,
and you're
yes,
still like speaking
there's
about
still
it.
so much to see.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So let's end this week's episode on that. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. As always, this was Hampi, another interesting place, and all of the incredible stories that make Hampi
And
what
now's the
it
best
really
time to
is.
go there. The winter's coming, so until March would be really nice to get there.
Yeah, and it's easy to get there too.
Yeah.
The roads are much nicer. Great. Let's end it on this. Sunila, have a good weekend. Listeners, thank you for tuning in to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life with Veena World. Neil and Sunila signing off, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.